everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am Kirti Dhanai, a site reliability engineer at Wayfair. I'm part of the DevX team here, and my job is to basically make sure that when thousands of developers and engineers are pushing code every day, it gets into production safely, quickly, and with as little stress as possible. Now, Wayfair is big, and we're running one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the world. And that means we just don't ship features, but we actually ship them at massive scale and under massive traffic. Even a tiny change like a recommendation tweak or a checkout page update can ripple through millions of our customers and cause millions of dollars in revenue. So today I want to tell you a story of how we went from building our own in-house feature toggle tool to how we hit a wall and then adopted Unleash to power a FeatureOps practice that helps us ship faster, experiment more boldly, and recover instantly without ever. Okay, let's dive into it. But before that, a little bit about me. I'm Kirti Dhanai, professionally a site reliability engineer and personally an explorer. I love exploring experiences, if that makes sense. I'm also a surfer and someone who loves outdoor activities. And honestly, I think about software development a lot like surfing. Like you want speed and you want bold moves, but if you don't have balance and control, then you kind of wipe out. And that balance, like the speed plus control, is exactly what FeatureOps gives us. I was just trying to tie it to our talk. Okay, cool. Let's see how the talk is going to flow. I will be talking about Wayfair first, just so you have some knowledge about us. And then I'll talk about our early days with the in-house feature toggle tool that we developed and how and why we moved to Unleash. We'll also take a look at the architecture that we have here in production at Wayfair. Then we will dive into the age of AI and how it is changing the entire industry and the challenges we're facing with it. And then we'll get into the tactical details of how we've built FeatureOps at scale at Wayfair. And yes, there will be real numbers. Now, hopefully we don't need an introduction, but here's Wayfair. We are an e-commerce platform focused exclusively on the home. We bring together an amazing supplier experience to the customers directly to facilitate shopping and fulfillment on everything that's home related. We are happy to be serving 22 millions and growing customers across the globe. From a brand perspective, we have a number of brands that help us meet our customers where they're at in terms of specialty brands for look, feel, and aesthetics of their home. And so Wayfair is a brand that unifies all of that strata, and that is how we deliver value to everyone across our customer base. Okay, so what is our use case? How does Unleash fit into our system? This is to set the context for everybody, so I will be covering this very quickly so that you know the journey that we've been through. Let's get into it. Let me go back a few years. Back then, feature toggle or testing features at Wayfair was quite painful for us. To toggle any features, we had to deploy. Engineers had to spend hours just testing those features. And while some of it was healthy because we had automations and stuff that helped us deliver the customer experience that we wanted, but it had slowly and steadily started to become redundant and a little more manual and slow for us. And especially when you're running PHP monolith with thousands of developers, that gives a massive drag on the velocity and the speed of innovation. So we definitely needed a solution. And the solution was to bring in feature testing. So like every other company does it, we went ahead and built our own in-house feature toggle tool. It was tied to PHP monolith that we had at the time, and it was working pretty well for us because suddenly we could switch features on and off directly into production, and it was very production friendly. And at the time, it felt like magic because engineers could experiment, validate, roll forward without even waiting for the full deployments to happen. And for a while, it actually worked for us. But like any other in-house solution, it was doing its job, but as Wayfair scaled, as we grew, we saw the cracks, and the cracks, they started to really appear because we started to experience rapid in-house user growth on the tool, and that was outpacing the development that we were doing on the tool, because everybody at Wayfair, all the engineers had started to get onboarded to the tool, and we really did not have many defined onboarding policies for our new users. So there was a lot of maintenance overhead for us at the platform team. We were going through constant patches, maintenances, and scalability was also a concern. Yes, scalability was always a concern for us because we were growing rapidly, but the tool wasn't growing rapidly, right? Uh, Apart from this, we had a little more problem with security, because engineers were able to make direct API calls to the DB and make changes and make manipulations there. And we did not even have enough eyes to track the history. We were not able to track the changes. Uh, Parallelly, we were also moving out of PHP, and so we needed more diverse integrations to support the microservices, and those integrations were becoming really hard for us to maintain. So instead of enabling us, the tool was actually slowing us down. We were spending precious engineering hours, engineering cycles to maintain the feature toggle tool itself, and not really working on delivering the features to customers. And so essentially our house started to catch on fire. And that is when we knew that we needed something more robust in nature. So this is when we decided to flip the most important switch that we could. We went from our in-house tool to Unleash. And out of the box right away, we found that it was very scalable. It was performance tested. It had the server-side SDKs and the client-side SDKs that we wanted, all of those integrations, be it Python or Node.js for server-side, or React and Android on the client side. This definitely immediately took off all of the burden of our hands, because we could now ship code with pre-built SDKs. And that was a really good thing for us. It also gave us more control over our activation strategies based on constraints that Unleash provides, like host names and IPs, etc. So now we can actually control our rollout to a certain percentage, and then move on to a full rollout. Right, so this is something that happened. But how did we do it? I'm going to take everybody through our architecture setup, how it used to look like at Wayfair when we just got on Unleash, and then how eventually we expanded it and enhanced it. So initially, when we started this collab with Unleash, our deployment was actually pretty simple. We just had one Unleash server, as you can see in the diagram. The server is backed by the Redis cache, and we had our service pods then connected directly to the server. Now, this was actually working really well for us at the time, because we had moved out of our in-house tool to a proper third-party tool that was Unleash, which was very scalable and very powerful. So our scalability issues were completely solved. But there was one thing that we found out is we had to give it like a one size fits all strategy, if that makes sense, to configure Unleash, because each server had services that were querying directly into the main Unleash server. So while it was working, it had its own limitations, because all the services were querying the server directly, and that was creating potential bottlenecks for us, especially during traffic spikes. The load on the core server could go faster than ever, and we actually started to see some gaps there. And right when we started to see the gaps, Unleash came along and released Unleash Edge. That was a huge boost for us. We adopted Edge pretty quickly, and now instead of all the services hammering the main server, they were querying the Edge instances. Edge instances, for everybody's understanding, they were acting like a proxy layer, sitting closer to our compute, closer to the services, right? Edge was very high performing. It's very powerful, scalable, and mainly because it had its own caching solution, which was working great. As you can see in the diagram, you may have noticed that each edge node maintains a Redis cache. And so even if the server is slowing down, or the main server slows down under the pressure, our edge servers, they kept serving flags and kept serving traffic at low latency. And if you may have noticed from the slides earlier, we have more than 22 million customers across the globe. So the boost that we got with Unleash Edge is something that we really needed, because with a single server and multiple edge servers connected to it, we were now able to pull a lot of traffic to Unleash Edge servers. The benefits from this were really great for us. The limit on the query load on the Unleash main server was very less now. The latency was reduced, it was to minimum. And this also gave us resilience because Edge continued to function whether or not the server had hiccups. So in real time, our code was being shipped, and it was backed by fault tolerance. We had a fault tolerant architecture. We will see how. Um, but before that, let me go over this slide. Unleash Edge, yeah, Unleash Edge was actually very stable, and it is still very stable for us till now, and it has been great so far. We have not faced any issues with it. Our Edge servers are auto-scalable. They auto-scale on CPU, and Redis caching ensures that they restart faster. This means mainly for us that during Black Friday traffic spikes or unexpected surges or things like sales or something, sale events or something, our feature toggle system, it doesn't even blink. It's resilient. It is failure proof. So failures, they never necessarily become outages for us. And then obviously we were also able to guardrail it, because at the scale that we are operating, our top priority is to make sure that the Unleash server stays protected, even when the traffic surges during peak hours, especially like Black Friday sales. This is the setup that we've set up for guardrailing our Unleash server. The setup is pretty standard, using Unleash Edge, Redis caching in the service layer mesh. First of all, I already spoke about all of the feature flags from the services are hitting directly to the Unleash Edge server. So all the requests are going directly to Unleash Edge. Now, Edge there is acting like a shield for us. It caches flags locally and sends only controlled or limited requests to the main server, right? And that's the guardrail for us. So instead of like overwhelming the server with thousands of requests per second, we implemented rate limiting. And as you can also see in the diagram, the cap for rate limiting was 2,000 requests, 2,500 requests per second. This was enforced by Service Mesh, and this ensured that even under very spiky traffic hours, the Unleash Edge server was protected and it remained healthy. Now, what did it bring for us? It brought stability for us. It brought scalability for us, and it definitely brought in a lot of confidence, because developers were now pushing features knowing that the control plane will not buckle under pressure. Here is a fun slide. Here is the real data from production. During busy days, traffic through Unleash Edge spikes a lot, but the latency stays pretty low, and the CPU utilization also remains too minimal. And at Wayfair scale, these numbers, these small numbers, they actually make the big difference for us, from being a stable company to a chaotic company, from serving stable traffic to chaotic traffic. And so here's the real data from our production environment. As you can see, Edge traffic surges across busy days. You can see peaks, and the peaks are more than 20,000 requests per second. Our traffic tends to be relatively spiky. So Unleash Edge is actually helping us scale up and down with traffic trend, keeping the latency less than 5 milliseconds, right? And that's how we've set up our architecture. It's very fault proof, it's very resilient, it's pretty strong, and that is the payoff of the architecture. We have a very stable performance of our feature toggle system at the scale of Wayfair at unpredictable loads. Right, finally, yes, let's also talk about cost very quickly. We compared the cost between our own in-house tool and the Unleash and the cost from after we adopted Unleash, and it is clear that the blue line is Unleash, and it was 3 times more cost efficient for us. So it wasn't really just a technical decision, it was also a business decision, because moving to Unleash, we freed engineering hours, we reduced infra complexity, and we saved millions of dollars in money. in the long run. Okay, great. Now that you know about the architecture that we have set up at Wayfair, let us zoom out and dive into the latest age of AI and the challenges we're facing. We all know we're living in the age of AI, age of artificial intelligence, and at Wayfair, the code velocity has exploded. Developers are pushing huge amounts of AI-assisted code. Reviews are faster than ever. Code is moving to production quicker than ever. But here's the paradox. The speed is up, but the reliability is down. So AI just is not just accelerating development, but it's also accelerating risks for us. And now that the code is moving to production faster than ever, it is almost impossible for the QA team or the testing team to keep up with the speed, which is where feature ops is now coming into the picture in our talk and in our topic of discussion. With the scale that we are operating at Wayfair, as I already mentioned, a single unchecked release could cause major revenue. So to keep up with that business model of no breaks in production, we had to come up with the strong and robust infrastructure and adopt FeatureOps as a methodology. Great. Now let's see how we're using FeatureOps to solve the new age problem at Wayfair. Okay, perfect. Actually, I feel like in times like these where code flows faster and code is flowing without control, that is when you will actually see the real power of FeatureOps, the real-time control that we give to customer experiences. On the right, you can see there's Unleash Playground. It's one of the most important tools that we use to debug and evaluate our feature flags before they hit production traffic. So we select our own environment that we want to test. We apply context fields based on like user IDs, regions, or even error codes, and instantly we evaluate when the flag will be enabled and disabled for that context, right? And also at the bottom, you can see that this means that we can safely release controlled features. So say only 10% of the user is now seeing that feature, 10% of user in specific region, or only a certain type of customer account. That is what, I mean, only those people are being served with that traffic. And if something breaks, we don't redeploy, we just simply flip the toggle and a dynamic rollback happens and the feature is disabled instantly. So our failures are no longer cascading into outages and the customers are not even noticing it, right? Moving on, yes, it is very important to know that feature ops is not just about flags, it's also about the discipline and how we use them. Here's how we've standardized it at Wayfair, and it's directly aligned with the Unleashes model. So we even make use of a variety of flags. We have operational flags, release flags, experiment flags, kill switches, which are very important for us for instant rollback, and then permission flags for fine-grained control. The beauty here is actually in the simplicity. Everyone across the team knows exactly what kind of flag they're working on. This avoids confusion, reduces debt, and it is a very clear cycle that's defined across the teams. For example, if you can see down, we have feature 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and feature 5 has been released recently, but if it stops working and if it breaks in production, we can just simply flip the switch, turn it off, and then not even touch feature 1, 2, 3, 4, which is called surgical rollback. So we surgically remove or disable feature 5, right? Now, with feature ops, we get to experiment, but not just experiment, we get to experiment with confidence. We utilize predefined strategies at Wayfair, like gradual rollout, targeting by host names and IPs, etc. If you can see at the bottom, say we want to test out a new checkout flow. We can start with just 5% of the traffic, measure the backend latency, the conversion lift, etc., etc. And if the results look good to us, then we can expand it from 25% to 50% to like a full rollout, right? That's like full stack experimentation, taking into account the business outcomes, the engineering health, and the customer experiences. And only if we see all the 3 boxes are being ticked, only then we ship it at scale. And that's how we make sure that our net release is always positive. Another key feature that I actually wanted to highlight is segmentation with environment control. Every feature passes through these environments, so development, test, pre-prod, and finally prod, like for everybody else, to deploy with confidence. And then segments is something that we make use of a lot, which is very powerful because we can target features to specific user groups. For example, employees in just Boston, or high-value customers, or just 5% of our shoppers. Now, this segmentation does not make things risky. It means that we're not gambling with releases, but we are releasing with confidence and very gradually and very safely. Now, here's the reality. Feature flags are actually very powerful, but if we don't manage them, they're going to turn into chaos. And at Wayfair, we've adopted the feature lifecycle management that Unleash has provided to us. Every flag is tied to a ticket, and there's a certain success criteria that's defined, and only when the flag meets that, it is cleaned up. So you can see many flags here. There's define, develop, production, cleanup, and archived. This visibility kind of ensures that flags don't become part of the permanent clutter. And as a result, our systems stay clean and all the teams, they stay aligned. And presently we are on version 6 series of Unleash, which is where we have this feature enabled, but we have just noticed that Unleash has released a new feature called Milestones, where they're tracking feature flags and projects with milestones, and that's set up in version 7 series, and we're really looking forward to leveraging it in future when we upgrade to version 7 series of Unleash. Oh, finally, this is a personal favorite. Very quick shout out to the admin UI. It may not look flashy, but it is one of the most important tools for us that provides governance. It's sleek, it's simple, it's observability rich. And at our scale, when we have thousands of engineers, we need to know exactly who toggled what and why, right? So the zero trust governance in action with RBAC approvals, audit logs. This is how we move fast, but never really lose control. And my team, the platform team, we are best friends with this admin UI console because it has offloaded us a lot with a lot of governance overhead. Okay, great. So finally, what does Unleash let us do? Unleash lets us innovate with stability and confidence, for sure. We have over 617 projects on Unleash in production right now, as we speak. About 9,000 plus feature flags across the clusters and more than 8,000 plus feature flags in production. And this number keeps growing with like 70 new feature flags per month. So the numbers are massive. Ultimately, these flags are helping us build faster, release safely, and with flexibility for innovation. It is ensuring that we just don't deliver with velocity, but also with acceleration. Okay, great. So here's the takeaway. At Wayfair, I guess our guiding principle is very simple. We move fast, but we never break the customer experience. And with AI driving the development faster than ever, FeatureOps is not just optional, it's essential. Yeah, I think that was my talk. Thank you so much, everybody. A big shout out and thanks to Unleash community for building the platform and for helping us do this at scale. Thank you so much for having me as well. I am happy to take up questions now.
Thank you, Katie. That was really awesome. I love the surfing analogy. It's for me, it's the perfect metaphor for FeatureOps. Like, go fast and make bold moves, but only if you have balance and control. And I really liked what you brought up about AI as a paradox. It's also what Ivar was echoing in his talk, how speed is really up, but reliability is down. And so I'm curious, has that led to any changes in your company about any new rules that you have for AI generated code?
Yeah, thank you, Melinda. Actually, I felt like my talk was very much in line with what Ivar covered in his talk, so that was great to see. I could see a lot of parts where both of us were intersecting. But yeah, about your question, I do get that with faster speed, the reliability is going down. That's one of the paradox, and I guess the other paradox would be, we are getting solutions faster than ever, but then the debugging also takes double the time with AI. But yeah, now with AI in picture at Wayfair, we have definitely enabled stricter policies. Our code reviews and code check-ins are more rigorous and more stricter now. And especially for Unleash, like feature flag releases, we are heavily enforcing the usage of Unleash Playground to test out any features that are going out. They're heavily tested in the playground to see how they've been acting in all the environments, to see how it's finally going to act in production. And also, our kill switches are very strong now because, I mean, we have granular things so that if something breaks in production, we do a rollback right there instantly. So yeah, we've definitely enforced strict policies now at Wayfair with AI, and especially with internal analysis through code check-ins.
That's really nice. Yeah, we're hearing this more and more that kill switches and feature flags are being mandated for any new like piece of code that you write, especially if it's AI assisted, as they are really like such a good safety net. Another question of mine was like, and then you're in the DevX team, so you have the perfect like perspective for this. This culture of FeatureOps, has that actually brought any day-to-day changes to your engineering teams? Like, do you feel like they're releasing with more confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty standard for any company, what I'm going to say, but FeatureOps definitely has helped developers ship code at faster speed and like with more confidence. And actually, being a platform engineer, it's helping us as well because we have better eyes on what's going out, how is the platform performing, and we know now that our platform is stable and it's resilient. FeatureOps, I feel like mainly it is helping us in events, like on big sale events. When big sale events are live, that is when we actually see the power of FeatureOps because we stop features. We stop features from going out before the sale event starts. So we do a code freeze of sort to make sure that no faulty features go out. And another thing I think that has changed in day-to-day life is that testing again has become very rigorous. Like experimenting ground is bigger now with the playground that I keep mentioning because that's one of the tools that we use all the time, the Unleash Playground. So yeah, testing on Unleash Playground I can see that developers are doing it more and more daily. So I think that is something that has changed. And from platform perspective, we're chill right now. We're like, cool, we got this. The platform is resilient. It's not going to break. It gives us confidence as well.
Yeah, hopefully Black Fridays are getting less and less stressful.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Ivar?
Ivar? I actually was curious. So you mentioned in your talk that you actually associated a ticket with every feature flag or every feature that you protect with a feature flag. Do you have any kind of default timeouts or kind of how long is a feature flag allowed to live in the system before it's expected to be removed?
That's a good question. That is exactly a type of problem that we're trying to tackle right now because what we have been noticing lately, and this is something that we've introduced recently, like tagging the feature flags with tickets, because lately we started noticing that we had a lot of feature flags and a lot of them were actually stale. They're like 3-4 years older, but no cleanup was done on them. And the problem with that is that the code is still alive. So the server is still getting requests on those stale features. So the server is still getting loaded. So that is what we were trying to tackle with the ticketing, with a ticket with a feature flag thing. So far, we closed that. How we close a feature flag is by marking the feature as released and it's stable, and that's when we close the ticket, or that's when a ticket should be marked as closed. But it is still a problem, I think, that we're trying to tackle. Our cleanup is still underway, and especially with the old stale flags, we're still doing the cleanups.
Yeah, it's a hard problem, but it's important, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, it's super important.
If you could improve one thing in Unleash, what should that be?
You know what? This is coming from me personally. If you could do like, okay, this is like from a platform engineer to the CTO directly. If you could probably enable a method where we could delete inactive users. I know there's already a method where inactive users can be cleaned up, but I think user cleanup is something that we are struggling with right now. We have an internal script that's running in the background that does the cleanup. I mean, it's an automation that runs in the background, but if that could be something that we can have within the admin UI, where we can clean up the users within like 90 days, 60 days, 30 days category, that would be a great thing to have.
Thank you.
Right before I joined the call, actually, I was checking at the latest user count that we have on our server. I just want to make sure that we're not running out of the quota. So I think the user cleanup, if that is something that you can help us with, that would be great.
Thank you.
Nice. Kirti, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. It was really nice to have you as a speaker. Hope you'll join us for the next one as well. We unfortunately didn't have time to go through all of the Q&A coming through in the chat, so if you have some time, please answer them in Slido. And with that, I think I'd like to move on to the next talk of the day.